Here we are once again, another year and another version of Skyrim released into the world thanks to our Lord and Saviour himself. So, what better way to celebrate than by playing through Skyrim yet again with a unique stipulation, one that I've seen suggested as far back as my original Skyrim with only a shield video. With that in mind, today's the day we figure out, can you beat Skyrim with only the Visage of Mzund? First off, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing any of the dwarven names right in this video, as their naming conventions are just word vomit to me. For those that are unaware, the Visage of Mzund is a unique dwarven helmet that not only boasts the best armor rating for a helmet in the game, but also has a unique ability in which the user can shoot out a steam from said helmet to damage their enemies. So, seeing how this technically classifies as a weapon and armor restricted run, the only piece of armor I'll be allowed to wear is the helmet itself. I can of course wear normal clothes to keep my dignity intact so long as they don't offer any kind of damage resistances. Now, with all that out of the way, let's begin. Okay, so when it comes to deciding on a race, I decide I'm going to play as a Redguard. 1, because I have yet to play as a Redguard for an Elder Scrolls video, and 2, because their unique power lets them have increased stamina recovery once per day. This will be very handy, as to actually be able to use the steam attack of the Visage, you need to have a certain number of stamina, otherwise it won't work. After giving myself the most appropriate name I could think of, I would say things proceeded as normal, but that is rarely the case in Skyrim. For some reason, Alduin never destroyed this part of the wall, and as such I was stuck inside this tower for all of eternity. While I could say the run is over and end the video right here, I instead just load back, which fixes everything, and then from here the Helgen section plays out as it should. And by that, I of course mean I sprint past any and all enemies. Once out of the tutorial, I need to begin heading west to start collecting the items I need for this run, so now is probably a good time as any to go over exactly what is required of me right now. Something I neglected to mention in the intro is that the helmet is not actually in Skyrim, but is in fact inside a dwarven ruin in Solstheim. Usually that's not an issue, you just gather 250 gold and then you can pay the ship captain at Windhelm to take you there. Problem solved. Well, it's not that easy, as you see to get past the gate to get the Visage, you need to have 2 Centurion Dynamo cores. Obviously, trying to get these at level 1 would be difficult enough, that's not even considering the fact I have no armor and cannot attack. Lucky for us though, the Dwarven Ruin where you start the Lost to the Ages quest has a few of these just lying around so I can grab them here relatively danger free. Thankfully, the Ghost of Catria here distracts the robots while I make out like a bandit with the cores. All that leaves is a 250 gold, and seeing how I'm in the area, I head north to Markarth to sell just about everything in my inventory, although not before channeling the power of my Northern Irish ancestors to pick potatoes at an alarming rate. With a backpack full of taters and a pouch filled with gold, I take the nearby carriage to Windhelm, and from there I bought a boat ticket to Nostalgia Land. After we get off the boat, we just need to head north of Raven Rock until we get to a dwarven ruin called Falbthars? Butcher pronunciation aside, it is not an easy dungeon. It is filled to the brim with high-level robots, and to make matters even worse, you have to deal with them while also trying to solve puzzles. In a normal playthrough, you would just swat them away no problem, and then have all the time in the world to figure out said puzzles. But I don't have that luxury, unfortunately. In the first room, I get chased by one of the roly dwarven bots while I have to figure out which one of these 10 buttons opens the way forward. If for some reason you're using this video as some sort of guide, the correct button is the 9th one. After we pass this part, we are immediately met with this piece of dwarven technology in which you need to hit it once to get it to open the way forward. I tried to punch it, which didn't work for some reason, but no matter, I have a longbow from the tutorial I kept just for this occasion. The common consensus I've gathered from the comment sections of previous videos is that in weapon restricted runs, it is okay to use a weapon if it is needed for progression. For example, when I used the laser detonator in the Lonesome Row BB gun video. But I also understand it is not the weapon in question, so if that bothers you, feel free to say the run is invalid in the comments section. Don't worry, we will still be friends. After the spinny contraption opens the way for us, I continue on until I find a second one covered in spider's webs, which I quickly clear the way, hit the thing, and then continue on. This then takes me to the room with the gears, which leads me to getting killed over and over and over again by this one dwarven sphere master who really had a grudge against me for some reason. What made this even more difficult is that I have to activate a switch for the nearby bridge, meaning I couldn't just rush on ahead. After a few more deaths, I noticed that after twisting the valve and pulling the lever, I could hop down to this area which would give me a small moment of safety to heal up while the death sphere attempted to figure out how to get to me. I was lucky enough to somehow jump out of the way of his crossbow bolt, and from there I just made a mad dash up and across the bridge to the next puzzle room. This one is fairly simple, so I won't waste your time. If you can read and understand how basic addition works, you should be fine. Even the dwarven ballista here didn't give me any trouble. This is good because after this puzzle, it's pretty much a straight shot to the Grand Hall where we can finally make use of those cores and then retrieve the Visage of Mzund, as well as a fairly decent amount of gold as a nice bonus. The helmet offers a base armor rating of 26, which as mentioned before is tied for the best in the game. It also has an enchantment that gives me an extra 60 points of stamina to work with, which will probably be more than necessary to use the helmet. To test out the steam attack, I tried on one of the nearby Centurions. I'm not sure if it really did anything, but it may also make me immune to its steam attacks in the process, I'm honestly not quite sure. Not that it really matters though, as he just slaps me straight into the floor afterwards. Clearly that foe was out of my league, so I head back to good old Skyrim and test out in some wolves outside of Riverwood. And it's fine. It's an okay amount of damage for this early in the game, but the main problem is my lack of stamina, as I can only use it a few times before I need to wait for it to recharge. This is especially bad because in combat, stamina regeneration is slowed. Not something worth worrying about this early though, so I head into Riverwood to sell the loot from the dwarven ruins, and because I can't have nice things, the game soft locks when I try to leave the Riverwood trader. Restarting the game fixes the problem, and now, as is tradition, it's off to Bleak Falls Barrow to get ahead of the curve on the story. The bandits here are easy enough, the added defense from the helmet kind of makes it so their attacks just bounce right off me, and as such they all go down in a few breaths. The giant frostbite spider was also simple enough, if a little time consuming, but it never posed a threat as it's probably the easiest enemy to cheese in the entire game. I also managed to melt Arvel to death pretty quickly, so that was fun. What was not fun was the Draugr. Well, to be more precise, the ones that used frost magic, as it has the unhealthy side effect of draining my stamina as well as my health. This will probably be more of a problem when I encounter them in larger groups, because when you fight them one-on-one, Draugr are not known to be very clever. Once I made my way to the end of the dungeon and came face to face with the boss, I finally remembered about the adrenaline rush power and decided to see how good it was. Turns out it is a complete game changer. The stamina regen is insane, so much so that I'm almost able to never stop spitting hot fire. Needless to say, the Draugr does not last long. As I then return the claw to Lucan, another idea comes into my head, one I have not had since my very first video. Vegetable soup.
I thought we were having steamed clams.
No, I said steam.
You see, this soup of the gods regenerates health and stamina by a single point for 12 straight minutes, and if I remember right, eating multiple of them stacks, so it's going to be an incredibly handy tool to have. With this in mind, I take every single potato, cabbage, leek and tomato I can find in Riverwood and the farms outside of Whiterun. I even decide to help out Carlotta by persuading Mikal the Bard to back off. This makes us friends, and as such she lets me take all of her vegetables for free. I then take my back pocket farm up to the cooking spit at Dragon's Reach and decide to make myself 44 bowls of soup. This should hopefully help me offset the stamina usage in bigger encounters that can't be avoided. After abusing his kitchen supplies, I help out the Jarl with the Dragonstone problem, become incredibly overjoyed when I manage to stab a knife into the map like I'm some sort of edgy general, and then me, Irilith and the guards make our way to fight the dragon. The reach of the breath attack is actually pretty short, so I can't do a whole lot unless the dragon is right in front of me. Thing is, when I do get close enough, he hits back with his breath attack, which is leaps and bounds better than my own. I'm able to hurt him a little bit, but I'm also aware that the Whiterun guards did most of the work. That's alright for now, but when it comes time for the first Alduin fight, I will need to be prepared or I'm going to be in for the fight of my life. With that in mind, I head back to Riverwood and begin heading west towards the Lady Standing Stone. While not a major boost, it gives me an extra 25% health and stamina regen at all times, so it'll hopefully make things even a little easier in the long run. While I was enjoying the swim there, I noticed that you can use the steam function underneath the water. It's not a mind-blowing revelation, but I suppose it would make slaughterfish less of a pain. After grabbing the ability from the stone, I was ready to make my way for Iverstead, but then Half Moon Mill caught my eye. Being the upstanding citizen that I am, I decided to go out of my way to rid the place of its vampire infestation. Yep, it totally wasn't their rightful property or anything. Anyway, after having steamed vampire, rather than take my usual route out of Whiterun and through the hills to Iverstead, I instead made use of my earlier adventure to fast travel back to Windhelm Stables, purchase myself a horse, and then head south to my destination. The horse isn't just a good thing to have for its speed, but what I find more important, especially for this run, is it means I won't need to waste my stamina to sprint across the map, and as such, I won't accidentally leave myself at a disadvantage in situations like this when I get attacked by wolves. Wolves weren't the only thing that impeded my journey to the Greybeards, I also happened upon an orcish drug dealer. Naturally, I purchased all of their skooma as it's a quick and easy way to restore stamina, and then the two of us got into a fight where I emerged as victor as they seemed to suddenly die of a heart attack. After that incident, I hopped back on my horse and continued on my way. I will say, this was a surprisingly relaxing journey. You sometimes forget how beautiful and peaceful these games can be when you're being hounded by bears and bandits every few seconds. When it was time to head up the 7,000 steps, I left Superintendent Cloppers at the base of the mountain so he wouldn't be eaten by the frost troll near the top. Speaking of said troll, I once again put the adrenaline rush power to good use as I effortlessly, albeit slowly, seared the flesh from his bones. After this, it was time to meet with the Greybeards, complete their training, and then make my way for Ustengrav to retrieve the Horn of Gondor. While the journey from Windhelm to High Hrothgar was an incredibly peaceful one, the trip from Whiterun to Ustengrav was the exact opposite. Usually, you'd be faced with a few bandits, wolves, and maybe have to dodge a few frost trolls, but just my luck, a dragon showed up. The whole encounter only lasted 5 minutes, truth be told, but it certainly felt a lot longer. Not helping matters was the nearby bandits who seemed less interested in the giant death lizard and were more focused on taking out the random guy wearing the golden helmet. I was lucky enough to have adrenaline ready for the first minute of this fight, but again, that can only help for so long. Once it ran out, it was time to bust out the soup, so I ate 5 of them and let them do their thing. While in total I probably inflicted the most damage on the dragon, at a certain point he just began to ignore me and went off after other bandits and creatures, which is really insulting if I'm going to be honest. Eventually he bit off more than he could chew when he tried to attack a guard outpost, and so once again, thanks to the help of the Whiterun guard, I was able to put down another dragon. Sovngarde itself was rather unremarkable. This isn't to say that it was easy, no, quite the opposite. The amount of restless Draugr here who could drain my stamina in a moment's notice was concerning. This meant that I wasn't able to attack anyone, and as such I had no choice but to just run straight through to the end where the Knot Horn was. Back to Riverwood once more, and I noticed Mirak's cultists. I thought that maybe I could take them in a fight, but let's not forget I still only have 100 health and absolutely zero magic resistance of any kind, so they are more than able to one-shot me. Loading back, I just decided to ignore them for the time being and instead meet up with Delphine, and the two of us head off to Kynesgrove to once again slog through another dragon fight. Well, that's actually a lie. I was able to get a good amount of steam off on the dragon as he was being resurrected thanks to the adrenaline rush, then, once it ran out, it was time to guzzle down some soup. It was here where I think I may have found the sweet spot for the amount of soup to consume to truly be effective, and it seems to be around 10. With 10 soups ingested, I was able to spew steam from my helmet at an almost consistent rate to the point where I never had to stop mashing the right bumper. Sure enough, this was the fastest and easiest dragon fight so far. Before heading into the certain hell that will be the Thalmor embassy, I decided to make a quick detour and grab the Elder Scroll now rather than later. Maybe one day I will follow the story properly and get the scroll when I'm told to, but today is not that day. I've already done more than enough spelunking in Dwemer ruins for this video, so I just sprinted through the entire thing as well as Blackreach in no small part thanks to the adrenaline rush. This perk is really the only reason this run is going as well as it is so far. After grabbing the scroll, it's off to the Thalmor embassy, but not before I steal every last vegetable from Catel's farm outside of Solitude. I then give my helmet, potions and soups to Malborn before carting myself off to the shindig. Causing the distraction with the help of alcohol is quick and simple, and once we arrive in the kitchens, I once more take anything that I can even remotely turn into a soup. This is where things really become difficult. Honestly, the game shows it better than I can tell it, just look at how little damage I do with each attack. And these are just the most basic of the Thalmor guards. When it comes to fighting the wizards, they rip right through me more times than I can count with their lightning magic. The only strategy, if you want to call it that sorta worked was blasting them with steam and then trying to lure them back into the main building one at a time. The key part of that sentence being one at a time, because if more than one of them followed, it was a guaranteed death sentence. Eventually, it was just down to me and the wizard, but for some reason he wouldn't follow me back to the building, so what I had to do was run out, blast him with as much steam as I could, and then run back to the building and wait until my health and stamina restored so I then could do it again. This finally killed him, and now I can move on to the final part of the embassy. It's easy enough to sneak through the building and make your way down into the dungeon, which is exactly what I did as I obviously did not want to repeat what just happened. In the dungeon, I very carefully made my way down the stairs to grab the dossier on Esbern to trigger the guards to come in with Malborn, all the while making sure not to get the attention of the wizard here. I then managed to get the attention of one of the guards and kill them and take the key while the rest are distracted by Malborn, and from there I just head straight for the exit. Malborn's sacrifice for the good of this run shall not be forgotten. I then once more return to Delphine so she can sign my attendance card, and then it's off to Riften to skulk around the sewers for a while. Those cultists from earlier keep teleporting to every city I go to, so after noticing how many people were in the Riften marketplace, I decided to just let them go nuts. I figured they'll still probably be here when I come back with Esbern, so we'll check back on them in a minute. As for the Ratways themselves, this is where I really notice the shortcomings of this helmet. Yes, while my defense is still pretty great considering it's the only piece of armor I have equipped, the fact of the matter is the steam is just not killing anything efficiently unless they are low level bandits or wolves. Even the two lowlifes at the door were able to get the best of me a few times because I lacked the ability to kill them fast enough. I am able to eventually clutch out a victory over them, albeit barely. To that end, I ignore the majority of them until I get to the Ragged Flagon, and then just head down to get Esbern. Short and to the point, I don't think it's possible for me to get past the Thalmor here with force. Once again, the wizards are the issue and I can't even go back to the flagon, because when I did, this happened.
Gets hurt.
This, once again, left me with only a single option, and that was just to run past all of them until I got to Esbern. Luckily, they won't follow you into this part of the Ratway until after you've met up with him, so that's nice. As we are making our way back through, Esbern and his Flame Atronach manage to help save the day, as I can distract and kill the wizards while I either provide support or take out the ones that don't come equipped with electric hand buzzers. There was one moment where Esbern went down and I thought I may have been doomed, but I was able to lead the surviving Thalmor in a goose chase around the sewers long enough to regen and could thankfully finish them off myself. Back outside, and the cultists seem to have finished wreaking havoc on the townsfolk, and by that I mean they got their asses kicked, and as such it was time for me, Esbern and Delphine to head to Alduin's Wall. As I had already travelled around this part of the map earlier when I was on my way to get those dwarven cores, I was able to fast travel to an orc stronghold and then hop back on my horse and trot over to Karstspire. The two Forsworn inside were remarkably easy. I was even able to hurt them. After this, I solved the puzzles, cut open my hand, and then for the first time in ages, Delphine didn't glitch out, and I could actually finish this quest without the use of console commands. The journey up the mountain to see the Chris Pratt dragon wasn't very eventful. Well, I say that, but I did run into this one ice wraith who, for lack of a better word, was just vibing on top of the mountain. At the peak of the mountain, me and Parthunax talked for a bit before I begrudgingly read the Elder Scroll and prepared to face Alduin. Now, I full well went into this expecting to be a tough fight, but if I'm going to be honest, it actually wasn't. Sure, I may as well have been tickling Alduin for the amount of damage I was doing, but you see, by this point I've come to realise that every time he lands, he tends to go to the exact same spot. This means I can just use the rocks here as cover while my stamina recharges, pop out, steam it up, and then retreat to the safety of said rocks, and then rinse and repeat for about 19 minutes. That is how long this took, by the way, if you were wondering. Parthunax was about as helpful as ever, serving as a decent distraction before giving up less than halfway into the fight. I will say I am a fan of this new form of flight he's unlocked, for it is quite ominous. Other than that, the only other part of the encounter that's worth bringing up is that for some reason Alduin was seemingly more relentless with his meteor shout than usual.
Good lord, what is happening in there?
Aurora Borealis?
After I breathed my last breath onto Alduin and he retreats, it's off to everyone's favourite part of Skyrim, the Peace Council. Yay. Rather than sit here and just watch this cutscene play out, I decided to do something productive, so I decided to start writing this very part of the script you're seeing now. Once that's over with and Odahving's made his grand entrance, it's off to Skulldafen to close the book on this challenge. Obviously, fighting the multiple dragons and frost magic wielding Draugr is next to impossible, so I just dart past them until I make my way inside the main temple. In here, I do actually decide to fight off any and all enemies that get in my way. Lucky for me, I'm only level 7, so it's mostly just normal ranked Draugr in here, so there's nothing too crazy to worry about. To make these encounters go by just a little bit smoother, I make sure to rest for a whole day before each one, so I'll have access to my power. This is just so that I can feel like I still have some semblance of strength at this point in the run. With the power of adrenaline, even the Overlord goes by with no issues. Back outside, and you already know what I'm about to do, and you're correct, I run like a madman to the portal, so I'm not left in a scenario in which I need to fight 4 dragons and a priest. Sun is strong, but he's also fairly slow, so I just bait him around in circles for a bit before I can get enough damage off on him and he stands down. You may be wondering why I didn't just steamroll him with adrenaline, and that's because you cannot wait while in Sovngarde. So I can only realistically use the power once, and I would rather save that for Alduin. Speaking of, it is now time for the final battle, and as is tradition at this point with Skyrim runs, this fight is much easier and faster than the first Alduin battle. Just like when I fought that dragon earlier on my way to Ustengrav, Alduin mostly just ignores my pitiful attempts at damage and instead focuses all his attacks on the 3 warriors. They actually managed to get the final hit on Alduin, forcing him to go into his down state while my stamina's low, so there's this brief awkward moment where the 5 of us kinda just stand around and wait for me to get ready before I deliver the killing blow. With Alduin's body steamed, I returned to Skyrim, finishing the game and proving yes, you can indeed beat Skyrim with only the Visage of Mzund. I don't know whether this was the most difficult Skyrim run I've attempted thus far, or just the most tedious. Honestly, it might be both. I really thought that the difficulty would come from the lack of armor, as I thought that the steam attack would do more damage than it did, so it was quite a shock to me when it was basically the other way around. Regardless, that's going to be the end of this challenge video. Enjoy what you saw, consider giving the video a like, and if you're interested in more challenges in the future, feel free to subscribe to one of these videos every week. My name is Nerbit, stay safe everyone, I'll see y'all in the next video.